Hello, my name is Carol Nadell. For those of you who have tuned in before, welcome back. And if this is your first time, I'm delighted to have you here. And thank you so much for inviting me into your home at Lionsgate for a short visit. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I've lived in New York City for over 50 years, but because of the pandemic, I am staying with my sister and brother-in-law in Voorhees. So at least for now, I am your neighbor. Over the past several years, I've enjoyed writing short personal essays about many aspects of my own life, both the good times and the more difficult ones. I've been fortunate enough to have some of those pieces published. Because I believe that much of what I write can be easily related to by other people, especially those who are, shall we say, of a certain age, like most of us, I'm delighted to share some of these stories with you. I hope you'll enjoy them and find something in them that seems familiar, that rings true, that brings a smile to your face, or perhaps even a tear to your eye. The piece I'm going to read today is all about becoming a grandmother. And whether you're a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, or simply have a special connection to a younger person in your life, I hope you'll find something here that resonates for you. And even if you don't, I hope you'll just enjoy hearing about my own personal experience. I call this piece A Reluctant Grandmother's Journey. Here it is. A Reluctant Grandmother's Journey. December 1992. It was what I imagine a typical winter day in Chicago to be. Windy, clear, and bone-chillingly cold. The paradoxically warm sun was shining brightly through the windows as, filled with anticipation, we entered the third-floor walk-up apartment. And there I caught my first glimpse of the beautiful newborn baby. She looked appropriately angelic and innocent as she slept in her blue and white striped bassinet. She was just 10 days old. Huge brown eyes, a beautifully shaped head with outsized ears true to her genetic heritage, creamy white skin so soft to the touch, a few little wisps of blonde hair, which in 2 or 3 years would blossom into perfect Shirley Temple-like ringlets. Born at 9 pounds, 14 ounces, she was the incarnation of the proverbial bouncing baby girl. She was my first grandchild, or was she? Just what was my place in this little person's life? That difficult question had been nagging at me ever since my husband and I learned that my stepson and his wife were expecting. I was not my stepson's mother. In fact, I had never been anyone's mother. Could I then really be someone's grandmother? Did I even want to be? So I did not greet this momentous occasion with unadulterated joy. I felt confused and conflicted. I wasn't so sure about this whole grandmother business. But deep in my heart, I knew one thing. I didn't want to feel like an outsider. It was this fear of being the outsider that had prompted me many months earlier to urge my husband to tell his son that I don't want to be called Carol. With a baby on the way, there had been some discussion about what my husband and I would be called by this newcomer. This seemed to be quickly becoming an obsession on my part. Since my stepson and his wife were Orthodox Jews, proving just how far an apple can fall from the tree, the titles to be granted my husband and me were certain to be of the Hebrew or Yiddish variety. As a secular Jew, I had little familiarity with the options. I knew about Bubby and Zayda, but that was about it. I also knew that it had already been decided that Bubby would be used by my stepson's mother, my husband's first wife, in spite of a relationship between mother and son that was troubled at best, totally estranged at worst. But I knew that my husband was to become Zayda on the birth of this child. Who or what was I to be? I didn't even know what the options were. What I did know was that I did not want this child, or any to come in the future, to ever think of me or address me as Carol. I knew why this was so important to me. I feared not being legitimized. I wasn't even feeling particularly excited, loving, or welcoming towards this pending arrival because I was so scared of being made to feel like an outsider. I had already felt considerable pain when I'd heard my stepson refer to me on one occasion as my dad's wife. Of course, that's what I was, but it felt so impersonal, like he didn't really see me as family. And now a new generation was arriving. Would they think of me as Zeta's wife? Just who was I? Never having had children myself, I wondered, can you be a grandmother if you've never been a mother? Do you have a legitimate claim to this status? Will you ever feel comfortable in that role, or will you feel like a little girl dressed up in mommy's clothes, lipstick smeared all over your face, stomping around the house in her oversized high heels? With all these anxieties and insecurities working on me, the question of what I was to be called took on huge symbolic importance, a fact that stunned even me. When my stepson eventually settled on Savta, a Hebrew alternative to the Yiddish bubby, I wasn't even sure how I felt about it. Somehow it made me think of Molly Goldberg from the 1950s TV show. It seemed so old. After all, I was just 48 years old. And since I had never heard the word Savta before, I assumed it had less stature and less legitimacy than bubby. I remember how delighted I was when one of my friends, more steeped in Jewish tradition than I, told me that she was familiar with that term. So Savta I became. It was not a completely smooth transition. I had many moments when I felt like an imposter, playing the grandmother role without totally feeling that was who I was. It took time for me to wear the Savta mantle comfortably. But over time, discomfort gave way to ease and ambivalence yielded to certainty as I built special relationships and countless memories with each child that came along. Joyous birthday celebrations with funny hats and mylar balloons with their names, fun-filled sleepovers, outings, and adventures in New York, favorite stories read and reread, countless viewings of the little engine that could video, special 10th birthday trips out of town that included their first stays in hotels, and so many more. As their childhoods ended, too soon for my taste, relationships evolved, of course. The bond between us remained and still remains unshakable. As they have battled through academic challenges, sometimes frighteningly unwise relationship choices, conflicts with their parents, and even the scourge of a serious eating disorder, they have repeatedly told me that I am an important part of their, quote, support system. In tough times, they seek my advice, and sometimes they even take it. And when things are going well, there'll be a text message or a phone call to give me the good news too. Even after all this time and all these wonderful experiences, there are still instances when I feel sad that I can't say, "You got your eyes from me," or "Your nose is just like mine." But now, so many years after that trip to Chicago, I know in a palpably powerful way that what I share with my grandchildren is far more important than DNA. And what I've given them can't be measured by branches on a family tree. I might have had a rocky start, but my role as Savta has turned out to be the role of a lifetime. And not once in all those years has any one of my 7 grandchildren ever called me Carol. Well, now that I've talked so much about these 7 very special people in my life, I just have to share this picture with you, which I hope you can see. This is a picture of me and these 7 wonderful young adults at my 75th birthday party just in January, this past January. And the beautiful young woman immediately to my left is now 27 years old and a nurse. And she is the little baby that I met in Chicago all those years ago. Hard to believe it looking at her now, but that's who she is. And as I said, the picture was taken at my 75th birthday party, and it was held in Voorhees, in fact, because one of the two main organizers was my sister, who, as I said, lives in Voorhees, and the other one was that little girl who I first met in Chicago 27 years ago. So I do hope you enjoyed that little slice of life story, and I wonder if it made you think of times in your own life when you might have felt a little unsure about a new role you were about to take on, or whether it just reminded you of any special people in your life. I'd love to know what you thought of the story and if it sparked any memories or thoughts for you. So if you have a computer and you have the time and you have the inclination, I would love to hear from you by email, and you can reach me here, cnadell@nyc.rr.com. As I said, I would love to hear from you. For now, just thanks for watching and have a good day. Bye-bye.